In my opinion, the old double-decker tram number 47, originally from Wellington, is tied with Baldwin steam tram number 100 as the most unique member of MOTAT's tram fleet. On the third Sunday of February 2024, I made a special trip to Auckland just to see 47 running. She normally only runs on the museum's monthly Live Day event. And for anyone who doesn't already know, MOTAT is an acronym for Museum of Transport and Technology. MOTAT's tram line runs for 1.7 kilometres from the MOTAT 1 site at Great North Road up to the MOTAT 2 stop near Miola Road, and the route is notable for its dual-gauge track. Auckland and Melbourne trams use 4-foot 8.5-inch or standard gauge, while Wellington trams use the slightly narrower 4-foot gauge. Incidentally, the Wellington Tramway Museum down on the Kapiti coast can't accommodate trams from other cities because it only has 4-foot gauge. And according to a book by Graham Stewart, called Trams Still Around New Zealand, MOTAT's line is electrified at 550 volts direct current, slightly lower than the 600 volts DC used on the Melbourne tram network. And speaking of which, I will be revisiting Melbourne for a few days in June 2024. I also filmed some of the AM electric multiple units before going to MOTAT. The rest of that footage will be published in a compilation of February's rail fanning. Here's AM 618 arriving at Newmarket as the 1017 ex-Melbourne service. And on the day of filming, Melbourne services weren't running all the way to Britomart. As soon as I got off the number 18 bus at MOTAT, I saw something very familiar. This is ex-Melbourne SW6 class number 893, built in 1944. Interestingly, the tram rides are free of charge, meaning you don't need to pay a standard museum admission fee if all you want to do is ride on the trams. Or rather, ride in the trams. Let Evel Knievel get on the trams. And finally, along came the crazy double-decker thingy, closely followed by the Baldwin steam tram. I went up to the MOTAT 2 terminus and back aboard tram number 47, going up there on the lower level as, by the time I got back to the platform after filming, the top deck was already pretty busy. On this occasion, Motions Road was a lot busier than I remember, and at one point I even saw the orange Enviro 200 buses, otherwise known as the Outer Link, running along here, when they normally go past MOTAT 2 on Miola Road. The crew weren't letting passengers get on or off 47 at the zoo stop, largely due to how long it takes to get down from the top deck. Baldwin-100 followed us all the way up the line, but following close behind 47 and 100 was my personal favourite member of MOTAT's fleet, ex-Melbourne W2 class number 321. One of many things that I like about 321 is her intact destination blinds. If my research is correct, Melbourne did have a tram route number 69, but it got merged with Route 16 in 2004. After the W2 left, I was surprised to see Baldwin-100 shunting from one track over to the other, and I can't remember why they did this. I always like seeing Baldwin-100, even though she looks a little silly without any rolling stock. This locomotive was built by Baldwin of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1891, and had a long and varied career, with one especially notable occasion being in 1920 while she was still in Whanganui. She ran an emergency service out to Castlecliff and Gonville while pulling 3 trailers, while there was a major power failure. She is a very rare bird in the preservation era, and even got a mention from YouTuber Amtrak Guy 365 in his video on steam dummies, a link to which is in the top right corner. At some point during the day, I realised that Baldwin 100 is the only standard gauge steam locomotive running in New Zealand. The others are all on 3-foot 6-inch gauge. Even though steam locomotive Y542 was also running on the Western Springs Railway on February 18, I decided to focus purely on the trams this time around. '47 arrived back at the MOTAT 2 terminus just before 2 o'clock. After the crew switched the points, the tram pulled forward and stopped just outside the platform. You'll see why they did that in a moment. This time, I rode on the top deck for the return trip. The spiral staircases up to the top deck are right at each end of the tram, but they're very steep and the steps are tiny. The longer dwell times at both ends of the line, compared to a conventional tram, are one of the reasons why 47 only runs on the live days.
Just going to wait for the other trams to pass us. Once they do, we'll be on our way again. Tram you're riding in, built in 1906 in Wellington. Served with the city right up until the system closed in 1964, when it was withdrawn from service and came up here to Auckland in 1967. Took until the 90s to restore it, and in 2010 it entered service finally. The steam tram today was ex-Sydney, 1898. Went from Sydney then to Wanganui, and ran there, well, sort of ran there right until the system closed in 54. Today it's been trialled on briquettes, eco-bio coal, which is done by taking sawdust, compressing it quite tightly, and putting it in the boiler. So it's a lot less smoke than it otherwise would. Next up, MOTAT 1, pump out connect.
Riding on the top deck can be exhilarating, but due to how close you are to the wires, you have to remain seated throughout the entire journey, and you certainly can't do something silly like open an umbrella up here. Upon arrival back at Great North Road, I watched 47 and 321 change directions again. Their departures were followed by my last catches of Baldwin 100 and SW6 number 893, and now I'll leave you with that footage.